And we are back. Welcome back into the Pigskin Cafe. My name is Hampton Sipper, and I will be your host today, guiding you through our college football Week 3 preview. We're going to talk about Miami versus Texas A&M, Penn State versus Auburn, LSU versus Mississippi State, Oregon versus BYU, and end it with South Carolina versus Georgia. And joining me today is the correspondent at large, Graham Haney, and the Reddit extraordinaire himself, Chase Haney. Guys, it is an honor to have you join me tonight. And I want to kick it to y'all right off the top. We had a crazy week 2 of college football. I came on, I think on Tuesday, gave my thoughts on the Alabama-Texas game and the wild, crazy game that was, along with some upsets that happened this past weekend. And I think that kind of defines the weekend itself. A lot of weird outcomes. Georgia Southern over Nebraska, App State over A&M. Lot of upheaval in college football. So I want to get your takeaways real quick. Chase, we'll start with you, and then we'll go right in to our Week 3 preview.
Yeah, I mean, dude, what a week. I think that the Alabama game, I think if I had to put it kind of in one word, I was honestly just kind of disappointed. Like, I was disappointed, felt a little deflated. I think that feeling kind of changed, though, as we saw that this was just the week of the upset. And you just kind of take the W, you try to use this film to learn from. But, I mean, truthfully, if you come out of there walking away with a win, that's honestly what matters at the end of the day. I think that kind of the perspective, I guess, changed for me a little bit. Just thinking of, man, I mean, you see Notre Dame go down, you see Texas A&M go down. I mean, it's just one of those days that you might have kind of dodged a bullet, and even though you got close. But I will say, hey, Marcus Freeman is now a Catholic, which that might mean that now they're good. They fixed the problem.
I told you what it meant. That man thought he needed a couple Hail Marys to win the game. So he did what he had to do. Started off 0-3.
There you go.
Made him turn to the Lord. I hear him.
We have talked on this podcast about, hey, being a new coach, sometimes there's games that you don't really want to win as you start off with. Hey, he's followed the script perfectly. To a T. Yeah. So now we get to see, I mean, really, we're going to see who Marcus Freeman's made of. I think for me, I feel like that loss, I mean, obviously it's bad, but I think that's the one where it's like, oh, man, Notre Dame, you're kind of working on a little bit of name recognition and you're not getting into a conference. You think you do it by yourself, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you just lost to Marshall. Oh, no.
And they lost their quarterback for 4 months, Tyler Buckner, which he wasn't lighting the world on fire, but still Ride the Pine got in there and didn't do much better. So they're in a difficult situation.
Yeah, this is a little bit different just kind of going away from Notre Dame, but I feel like for Nebraska fans, it's sort of a bittersweet moment. It is, and I say that like unsure if that's like the right word to use, because I feel like they are relieved that Scott Frost is no longer their coach, but I feel like they're somewhat disappointed too, because he was like their prodigal son. He was the winner at quarterback who led them to some great seasons. Goes to UCF, and really, shows out, has an undefeated season, claims to be national champions, but we will get into that. Then comes home and Nebraska thinks they got the coach of the century. And what happened? Scott Frost.
Nothing.
Scott Frost. Yeah, Scott Frost did what he did, and I mean, it gets even worse. I think Georgia Southern's supposed to be one of the worst teams in the Sun Belt. Which, I mean, after last week, I mean, the Sun Belt's looking pretty good, so that could be not the worst thing. But man, I feel like for Nebraska, it's just such a it's a program that has so much pride, and man, they've just kind of bottomed out. And I don't really know if there's really something to get excited about, especially you fire your coach and then you go play Oklahoma. I mean, man, it doesn't get worse than that.
Absolutely not. And I saw someone tweet who ticked off the Sun Belt, and I said maybe the moon. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, they came ready to play this past weekend. And speaking of that, App State comes into College Station, like we mentioned, beats A&M 21-14, no, 17-14, and very impressive performance by them. Game day is going to App State this weekend to cover App State versus our alma mater, the Troy Trojans. So that's really
Trojan
exciting.
Tailgate Podcast.
Yeah.
Yes, formerly known as. Absolutely. And so that's going to be exciting for them and getting that exposure for their program. But now let's shift to this weekend where we've got A&M reeling from that loss, welcoming in the Miami Hurricanes, who themselves did not look great this past weekend. I mean, I think they were losing to Bethune-Cookman at one point. I think that was who they were playing this
They played
weekend.
Southern
Was it?
Miss. Played Bethune
Oh, they
Cookman.
played Southern Miss.
Yeah, they played-
Gotcha. Got it
They're
confused.
playing Frank Gore Jr. at Southern
Frank
Miss.
Gore Jr. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
the mighty Frank Gore Jr. Well,
Yeah.
they did not look too hot. I think they got down 7-3 at one point, 133-7, but very sloppy performance. Going into College Station, playing late at night, 8 o'clock kick. Graham, what are you looking for in this game, and who do you think ultimately is going to come out on top? Does A&M rebound? Does Jimbo make any adjustments with the offense? What do you think?
Man, I think when you look at it, I mean, Texas A&M had an awful week. I mean, from administration to social media to coaching to player performance. I mean, even like I think App State had trouble even leaving the state. So I mean, everything was going bad in Texas, and Miami coming into town. I feel like they're just lucky. They're just happy they won, which is kind of surprising to say. But man, I think that the biggest thing is going to be quarterback play. Haynes King was absolutely awful. And then Tyler Van Dyke for Miami. One of the projected top quarterbacks coming out in this projected in this year's draft. Man, if Haynes King doesn't get any better, Texas A&M is going to be in rough shape. Jimbo's offense, Hampton. I know you like to talk about it. It's old. It feels like we saw it in 2010 when it was at its peak, and it's still the same. And he doesn't have Jameis Winston playing quarterback for him. He has Haynes King, who is a fairly good runner, but I mean, just doesn't have the touch on the ball that you really need in today's game, and especially when you got a guy like Max Johnson, who's a transfer from LSU, who struggled at times last year, but I feel like we feel confident in his ability to sling the rock around, spread the ball out. And we talked about it. What was their identity going to be? And I think their identity was to have no offense, very little defense, and then kick a field goal to win the game. And the script got turned on this week, and that's what happened. App State controlled the line of scrimmage and really ran the ball well against A&M, and that was kind of concerning, because if App State can run on you, what's Arkansas going to do to you? What's Alabama going to do to you? What if you play LSU, what's LSU going to do to you? We know Mississippi State's not going to run the ball, but you never know. Man, I just think it comes down to quarterback play. Haynes King has to be better if A&M wants a chance to win. And so I feel like he might start this game, but I feel like the leash is really short. I feel like Jimbo's really going to feel a lot of pressure if they don't win this one, especially playing a big dog in Miami. Chase, what you think?
I mean, I hate to just say like you're spot on, but I mean, I watched that game, and you can look at like the spot on. I'm just going to quote Hampton Sipper when I say that.
I was wondering if that was going to go by without being mentioned.
Man, I watched that game, and I'm Graham. I mean, the dude just Haynes King. I mean, he's throwing the ball, and it's just like it's behind your receiver, dude. Like, I mean, this isn't like man. You don't have the arm strength. It's like, bro, you're not. This is 7-on-7 gets this kind of fixed, and I was just almost shocked that it just didn't get any better. And I mean, Graham, like you said, short leash. It's like, hey, I mean, you could have put me out there. I could have lost to App State. I mean,
I can hand the ball off.
Yeah, I mean, it was just something as simple as that, and it makes you really worried if you're an A&M fan. Is that really the best option that we have? Like the guy who's behind him can easily lose to App State. Not taking anything away from App State. App State, I think, is a really good football team. I think that they're bred for, hey, we're not the big recruits. We're not the transfers. We're guys who've been here for 3, 4, 5 years, who've been grinding, working on technique. Like everything that we've got is because we worked to get there. I think that we're seeing this shift in college football of, hey, if you want to transfer and if you want to like kind of chase the check, some of these teams that are a little bit more of we're going to put the work in to get there almost have a huge upside of chemistry and loving a coach. Because, I mean, I think what you've seen now is, hey, people are starting to not buy into this Jimbo train anymore. It didn't take long. So all that to say, if Hangings King, I mean, if he doesn't show up or if they don't have a better quarterback, I mean, they're going to continue to lose games. And it's as simple as that. But I really think, hey, is A&M about to have a culture problem of having, I mean, they've got all these guys, and if you're not winning, that makes everything fall apart. So all that to say, I mean, I'm looking forward to see what Miami has kind of on a big stage. They haven't really played anybody that's impressive yet, so let's see what they've got. But A&M's supposed to have the home field advantage with their kind of environment, and that did not help them out this past week. So maybe it being a night game might help them. Hampton, what do you think? I mean, it's really hard to it's hard to get my mindset around that A&M lost that game, but then it's even harder for me to say, hey, is Miami a good team or not? They haven't had much film of quality opponents to really tell that. Where do you sit on this?
Well, before I kind of dive in, who are y'all picking to win the game?
I'll go Miami.
Miami?
I'll go Miami too. I think
Okay.
I was going to go Miami's way.
Okay. So, in my own words, spot on, both of you, with your analysis and your deep dive
Lowercase,
into
uppercase,
this game.
lowercase, uppercase.
I mean, very, very detailed, very accurate. Haynes King, not only does he have a throw-in motion that looks like the guy off All-American trying to throw the ball.
I meant to text you that the other day.
I mean, no lie. I mean, that thing, let me get in the frame. Where are we at? Woo, that thing is all the way up here. It is ridiculous. And not only that, he's not very accurate. His pocket presence is awful. He can't sense the rush at all. And the Texas A&M offense has no rhythm, no semblance of a passing game. And then their rushing game hadn't been great either because their O-line's terrible. I mean, I think that isn't being talked about enough. Like, we've talked about the quarterback play, and granted, it's been bad, but the offensive line has been just as bad, even when they played Sam Houston State the week before. So I think if I were an A&M fan, I would want Max Johnson inserted into the game. I would want him starting this game because I've seen him win games at the SEC level. He played well. To me, he played well for LSU last year. Is he an all-star? Is he an all-SEC type player? No, but he's a really good college quarterback. Very accurate, mobile enough, like a little sneaky athleticism. That's a code word for you. You know, sneaky athleticism. And I think he's a smart football player. And if A&M wants a real chance to win this game, I think they've got to put him in the lineup. And they've got to get that running game going because Jimbo's offense is predicated on Jimbo's offense is predicated on having a running game, doing play action off of that, and doing quarterback rollouts, quarterback boots, and he hadn't had that in the first 2 weeks. And I kind of went into a lot of their offensive issues in the last podcast, but I'm very concerned about A&M. Their defense got ran all over last week, like you mentioned, Graham. And Miami, while they haven't looked great, they looked pretty good the first week. I like Mario getting his guys up for a big game. I mean, they've got to know this is their moment to make a statement on the national stage, like you mentioned, Chase. And I think they're going to get the job done. They're going to go in to College Station. They're going to get the win, and it's going to be the first program-defining victory of Mario's career. And that's, to me, it's going to start a snowball effect for Jimbo because next week is Arkansas. Week after that is Mississippi State, and then the week after that is Alabama in Bryant-Denny. Not looking good for old Jimbo with the $90 million buyout. So we all three picked Miami, which is very interesting. I don't think anybody would have said that before the year started, but crazy how things change in 2 weeks. Let's move on until Graham. What do you got to say?
A&M's 5.5-point favorites this matchup. A lot of points.
I think that's home field. And people thinking that they're going to have a big response due to like kind of a lowly effort, but I don't know, man. I don't know if a lot of their issues aren't fixable. I mean, a lot of them are
Not in 1 week. No.
wholesale changes, not in 1 week. Absolutely. I'm with you, Graham. All
Hey,
right. Penn
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Just if we were going to add on, I would just say that, hey, man, if you're a recruit in the state of Florida, if Miami wins this game, I think that you're seeing Miami and Florida. They both made phenomenal hires. They're getting back in business. If Miami loses this game for some reason, oh, buddy, you're going to see a lot of talent start going towards the Gators because they saw, them take over Utah. I mean, if you can't beat kind of A&M when they're dead and on the ground, Miami needs this win. They need to show that they can make that progress just as much as Florida has. So I think I always like to kind of try to look at these games of like, what are the implications almost bigger than just us, on the record sheet. So anyways, I think just as a recruiting kind of standpoint, big for Miami.
Absolutely. In the macro view of things. Absolutely. Great stuff from you two on that one. Let's roll in to the 2:30 time slot. We've got Penn State visiting Auburn and their orange out that they're all making a big fuss over. That kind of cracks me up. Chase, I'm going to start with you on this one. What are you looking for in this game really quickly? And who do you think is going to come out on top?
Man, I'm not quite sure. I think that Auburn is one of the most, I don't know, you could say kind of question mark.
They're a wild card.
They're a wild card, man. And don't they play well at home? It doesn't matter who's coaching, doesn't matter who's playing. They struggled with San Jose State last week, but they always seem to squeak it out. So, hey, I'm gonna just simply go with this. I'm gonna say not much depth to this. I've seen Penn State whenever they kind of fought back against the Boilermakers, Purdue, and got that win when I didn't feel like they really earned it or deserved it. Like they just kind of at the very end, it's like Purdue is like, we know y'all are supposed to be the better team, therefore we're going to let you have the win. So I'm going to actually say, you know what? Give me Auburn at home just because it makes sense that this doesn't make sense, that Auburn will win this game, that all of a sudden it's like, hey, is Auburn a team? Will they beat Penn State? I think that Penn State's kind of on the down. And so I'm going to pick Auburn to win this game. Graham, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know why we're thinking the same way. I don't know why I feel like Auburn's going to win this one, but I feel like Auburn's going to win this one. I think they're going to learn from last year and the fact, in two ways. The first one is going to be when they're at the goal line, doesn't matter the situation, hand the ball to Tank Bigsby. And the reason for that is because Tank Bigsby is the best player on your team, and second, I don't know if you can trust any of the Auburn quarterbacks to make a game-winning play like they tried to get Bo Nix to make in Happy Valley. Where's that? Happy Valley.
Right. Happy Valley.
Yeah, and so Auburn is really good at playing the competition. I feel like that's kind of I felt like we felt the downswing of that last week with San Jose State. I feel like it swings back up this week, knowing they didn't play well and being motivated to play. Penn State gets some revenge. So I'll take Auburn at home because I feel like Sean Clifford's going to make a big mistake late, and Auburn's going to capitalize. Hampton, are we all going the same way the whole night? Or are you going to switch it up right here?
He can't allow himself to pick Auburn.
Well, here's my thinking. Here's my rationale. I'm with y'all. If it were at a neutral site, or if it were at Penn State, I would most certainly be picking the Nittany Lions to win this game. But the fact that it says Auburn gives me a little reason to pause. But throughout Auburn's first two matchups, they have not looked crisp offensively. Neither quarterback has been consistent enough through the air. I mean, I know last week they kind of played down to the competition, but I mean, TJ Finley threw a couple more interceptions on top of the ones he had the first week. Robbie Ashford had some, and I know they're going to try to incorporate both for Robbie to kind of add that dynamic threat. But I think Penn State, especially, I got to give a shout out to one of my favorite players in college football, Joey Porter Jr., the corner that they have. I think they're not going to have a semblance of a passing game on Saturday because he's going to take away their best receiver. And I don't trust TJ Finley or Robbie Ashford to really make plays. Now, I don't trust Sean Clifford either, but last year he probably played the best game of the year against Auburn. His best game of the year was against Auburn, and I think that Auburn team last year was better than the Auburn team this year. So I've got James Franklin and the Nittany Lions going into Jordan-Hare, getting a hard-fought victory. They win by 3 to 6 points. I really it's not because I don't want to pick Auburn, because, I'll pick them next week, and I'll probably pick them to beat LSU the following week. But I think Penn State is going to come in here and get the win, and put another notch for the Big Ten and kind of keep that train rolling. Let's move on to our third game that we're going to deep dive, and then we'll roll through the final two really quickly. LSU hosting the Mississippi State Bulldogs. This one's really interesting to me. This is always a very compelling game, a good matchup. Graham, I'm going to kick it off with you. What are you looking for in this game, and who do you think ultimately comes out on top?
Yeah, I think this comes down to, this is the first real test that Brian Kelly will face at home. Even though they played in New Orleans, that was technically not a home game, even though I feel like a lot of us felt like it was. They really whipped up on Southern this past week. So, man, I feel like this is going to be the first time that he's going to be able to use the LSU fan base, as an advantage. I don't really feel like he was able to use that in its full capacity in New Orleans, and I think it's a good quarterback matchup too. You've got Jaden Daniels for LSU, and Hampton. We love the guy at Mississippi State, like to throw the ball around just a little bit, and Arizona is who Mississippi State played. Mississippi State's coming off a pretty good performance, playing at 3:00 in the morning against Arizona is what it felt like.
It seemed like it.
I felt like everybody was wrapping up for the night. I was like, oh, this must have rain delayed. Nope, they were just supposed to kick off at 11. So I feel like it really is, going to come down to quarterback play again. Mississippi State likes to throw the ball around. Will LSU be able to capitalize on some mistakes? Mississippi State, I think they've had lots of high-scoring games because their competition hasn't been at its peak. Arizona's not really that good. So I feel like it's going to be a really good test because I don't really know. I don't really feel like we know all that LSU can be, and I think that kind of it's just in the back of my mind to what the game's going to turn out to be. I gotta make sure they're playing in Baton Rouge. I'll go with LSU. I think it's going to be close, but I just think this is a field goal, late touchdown that just kind of seals the game. Chase, what you think?
I think that I'm with you. Like I said, it's kind of hard when you're only working on, one quality. Like when they played Florida State, okay, when they're playing Southern, what are you really grabbing from that? LSU. Speaking of LSU, I think the Mississippi State has played at least they played Memphis and they played Arizona, which I'm like, okay, I've heard of those schools before type, measurement. But I think that I'm with you. I think that Brian Kelly, hey, you got to have this one. I think that I chose Mike Leach as dude, respect for the guy, but when it comes down to it, I just don't know if he can go in this year and beat LSU like he had. I think that he did that the year of Ogeron, whenever he was getting fired. Am I right about that? I think
2020, first game of the year, they threw for 500 yards on them.
Yeah. I think that there's players that remember that, and I think that for that reason, I think that they're not sleeping on Mississippi State. It's not okay, we get to play the Vanderbilt, that kind of level SEC opponent. I think that they remember what it feels like to see someone literally beginning to lose their job because they lose to this team. So all that to say, give me LSU. I think that Brian Kelly, it's going to frustrate us when he wins, not just Alabama fans, but as you watch his press conference, he's talking about people being late and someone says, if you'll win, then I won't be late. I think that it's going to frustrate us that he's going to win games like this that'll be close, but then you get to see him march up to that press conference and, he's got kind of this demeanor that's hard to like when he says stuff like that. But I think that this is going to be one that we're going to have to just kind of say, hey, you know what? Got his guys ready. They might not love him, but he's trying to shape a culture there. Do we like the culture or not? It's up to kind of your own personality. But I think that he gets his guys ready. They remember what it feels like to lose to Mississippi State at home. So, Hampton, what are you feeling? I feel like you might have a little more of an educational almost guess as to how these teams match up.
So I get the point about they lost in 2020 and players remember that, but also they had a mass exodus on that team So I think a lot of those guys may even be gone, may even be gone and transferred elsewhere. But I kind of look at it like this. So, the first game of the year, Mississippi State, they play Memphis and they blow them out. Now, Memphis isn't a juggernaut. They're still a quality anymore, but they're still a quality team. They're a quality team. They beat Mississippi State the year prior, and Mississippi State went in or hosted them and blew them out. Then you go to Arizona and you win 39-17. You kick off at 10 o'clock at night, and Will Rogers is 39 of 49 for 313, 4 touchdowns and a pick. They actually rushed the ball all right for Mississippi State. Averaged about 5 yards a carry, over 100 yards. And, Graham, I feel like in our SEC West preview, one thing I'm really proud of us about is that we called Arkansas being really good. We called them being probably the second best team in the West. We also talked about Mississippi State kind of being a sleeper team that is really talented. They've got a brutal schedule, and their record might not reflect how good of a team they actually are.
Yeah.
And when I look at this matchup, I look at Mississippi State's defense that is returning 8 of 11 starters, and we saw what that Florida State D-line did to that LSU O-line in that first matchup. Jane Daniels was running like a chicken with his head cut off and running for his life, and I think they're going to be able to stymie that LSU offense. And then conversely, I think Mississippi State is going to be able to attack that LSU secondary that I don't think is very good. I mean, Jordan Travis, I think, threw for 250 to 300 yards on him. And I believe Will Rogers is a better passer than Jordan Travis, and especially their system is more conducive to that. And I really like the Bulldogs going into Baton Rouge and getting this win. They've done it before. They did it in 2020. Granted, it was a COVID year. They did it in 2014 when Dak went in there and, kind of had his breakout moment where that was kind of where the Heisman push for him that year began. And I think Mike Leach is going to come in there, make a statement. And I think they just simply have a better team and that they match up really well. Their strengths match up with LSU's weaknesses very well. And I think they ultimately come out on top and get the dub. So I'm going with Mississippi State. Let's cycle through these two games really quickly. Just simple. Who you got winning the game? Not much analysis on these two. We've got Oregon and BYU. BYU coming off a very impressive victory against Baylor in double overtime. Hate I got that pick wrong, and I didn't stay up for that game, but it seems like it was a really good game, thrilling, and BYU came out on top. So, Graham, start with you. Oregon, BYU. Who you got?
I'm going Oregon. I don't think BYU can, be the underdog twice in a row. Well, they weren't last week. Be the higher ranked team 2 weeks in a row. Give me Oregon.
Love it.
Chase?
Man, I think, Graham, I'm right there with you. I mean, you can easily see the difference. Hey, I think it simply comes down, honestly, you get Bo Nix or you're getting Bo Picks. Last week he had 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. They'll win the game.
Who are they playing?
The powerhouse, the juggernaut of Eastern Washington.
Whoa!
He's
back.
Hey, the border
war. My
war.
hot take still rings true.
The border war.
Yeah.
The border war.
Hey, I'll say, just speak a little bit on the Baylor game. I didn't get a chance to sit up and watch it much. I think Baylor played that game completely. Like, the game plan was bad. Ran the ball a lot, and it's like I like shaping a lot. We didn't pass the ball near enough, but I think
they didn't seem to stretch the field vertically at all. It was very short and intermediate stuff that they were kind of sitting on in the few plays I watched.
And maybe that's like, hey, we're not giving enough credit to the BYU secondary, but I think that again, I mean, hey, Bo Nix, if he tries to go deep, that might be the formula here to win in this game. That's my key. Bo Nix goes deep, doesn't get picked off. That's how they win this game. What do you think, Hampton?
I got BYU. I'm not getting burned by Oregon and Bo Nix and that coaching staff ever again. I will probably, if they ever come up, I will pick the opposite team, even if I have to be wrong the next time. I'm done with them. But give me BYU. I think they match up really well. They were without their 2 top receivers last week. I think they're getting those guys back. Gives them another added dimension. Give me BYU. Final game of the weekend in the 11 o'clock slot. Big favorites, Georgia Bulldogs going in to South Kakalaki, Columbia, South Carolina, and facing the Gamecocks, who were coming off a pretty impressive performance against Arkansas put up 30 points. Chase, who you got in this one?
Who I got? Man, I think Georgia. I mean, they're going to make Spencer Rattler. This might get ugly. Everything that we claimed as victories from last week might get squashed this week. I think Georgia by a lot.
Are you saying Rattler gets rattled?
Some might say. And as other people would say, spot on. Greg, what you got?
Yeah, I'm with you, Chase. South Carolina scored 14 points in the fourth quarter, so they kind of made up that the edge towards the end of the game. But if you watched any of it, Arkansas controlled both lines of scrimmage. I mean, they were dominant running the football. So I think that Georgia is just as good, if not better, at doing that than Arkansas. So I think it could get ugly too, Chase. Stetson Bennett, after playing a great week 1, a little slow week 2. I think week 3, first road test for Georgia. I got Georgia pretty big. Hampton, say we agree on this one.
I got South. I don't have South Carolina. I would love to pick South Carolina, but you made your point about the trenches. There's such a disparity there. Shane Beamer's working to get that fixed, but in year 2, they simply don't have the depth to compete with Georgia. Georgia wins pretty big. The only hope they have is if Rattler has the game that everyone has envisioned him having for the past 2 or 3 years. So still going to watch it. Going to be fun, but give me Georgia. And with that, we are going to pick the Troy game because I completely forgot about that. Really quick, Graham, who you got? You got the alma mater or you got the Mountaineers?
It's going to get ugly. Troy doesn't stand a chance.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so I was going into it. This is my thinking. I was like, man, App State had to really risk it all against North Carolina and A&M to win. I was like, shoot, man, Troy might come there, sneak up on them, just like App State saying, "Whew, we got a week off. We get to play Troy, and Troy can sneak up on them." With game day there, not a chance. I mean, Troy might not even score, which is the truth.
Okay. Chase?
Are you kidding me? Man, hey, give me the Trojans by a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm kidding. Man, I mean, I guess
Trojans by 100.
Yeah, if you're if you're a Trojan fan, I mean, you're hoping that it stays close, hope that everything goes your way, you hit some big plays. Hey, let's quit playing Gunnar Watson.
Hey.
Let's play the guy who came in from West Virginia and just say, I mean, who gives a rip? Like,
Dogie?
Yeah, let's put Dogie in. Let's put the Dogecoin in. I'm here for it, man. I think that I mean, for real though, if you're Summerall and you're coming into this game, and you're a Troy fan, it's like Summerall. Just go out there and be competitive. Like, say we can. Hey, if the cards are dealt our way, and somehow we end up on game day, are we going to show up when everybody else is watching? That's an exciting pitch. So hey, for giggles, hey, give me Trojans by 3. Hampton, who you got?
Well, you said bench Gunner, and I've got to give him a little bit of a compliment. He had a really good second half against Alabama A&M.
Ooh.
I think he had 4 touchdowns.
Where are they located?
Alabama. But he came out, responded well in the second half, and get the kid a shot. But I've got App State win this game. Their ability to run the ball, I think, is going to be the key difference. They've been able to do it on North Carolina, which I think Enterprise High School could run on North Carolina. They were able to do it on A&M. I really like their quarterback, Chase Price. He's been around. He's very experienced, going on his 10th year of eligibility. And I've got App State winning a close one, but Troy is going to compete. It's going to be a fun game, and great call by you on that. And I want to also give a shout out to Denver Harris, Texas A&M player who was playing Mario Kart through the parking garage. Brother, you got some mad skills. Fast and Furious having a casting call. You need to join up.
Hey, Hampton, I need to just let him know. Hey, you better go and do it now, because when you get married, you're not gonna be able to game anymore.
You ain't gonna be able to game anymore.
Soak up every second of it.
Yeah. That's a good point and wise words from a married man. And
That
with
was for
that,
free.
that was for free. Pay another $3 for more good marriage advice. But with that, that will be the end of our show of our week 3 college football preview. And we thank you so much for joining us. If this is your first time listening to the Pigskin Cafe, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit a like on the video, leave us a comment, and hit that notification bell. Also, follow us on social media on Instagram and Twitter for clips that we put out of the show and for links, for polls that we sometimes do, and follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We appreciate all the support we've gotten this far. We've really enjoyed doing this for the past 3 years, and I feel it's like a fine wine. It just gets better all the time. So we appreciate all the support for everyone listening. And the Pigskin Cafe is closed for now. But until next time, when we're recapping week 3 of college football, chew on that.